I just want to talk about a project we've just done in Scotland, which I think hopefully illustrates the way things are going with infrastructure. And it's got the longest title in the world. It's the Low Carbon Infrastructure Task Force Study, long list of projects for Scotland. It's not particularly snappy, but bear with me as I go into it. So yeah, there was the project scope. The basic premise is there's a feeling at the moment a lot of public money being spent on infrastructure. Very little of it will actually help Scotland meet its climate change targets. So we were tasked to go out and come up with 10 ideas that would meet the climate change targets, to come up with 10 projects or programmes that would meet that role. So that's not in terms of the detail, but it's more sort of the type of project that should be being developed. So we did that. It was great. It had to have a clear role for the public sector. There were certain criteria set for us. It had to be sort of ambitious yet realistic, so it wasn't about jetpacks. It was very much about something that could be done. And it was, as I say, it's very much about how would the public sector get involved in that. So just a little bit of context in terms of that project. I think, to be fair to say, in Scotland, the policy background is maybe more stable. We've had a government for a number of years now who are very much wedded to the low carbon infrastructure debate. We've also got a number of other programmes around this, which things like the Zero Waste Plan, so very much an emphasis on dealing with waste sustainably. We've also got the Cities Alliance, which is about cities working together to bring forward low carbon infrastructure, amongst other things. And we've also got a policy agenda, which is very straightforward. It's the 5 policy imperatives there about smarter, greener, wealthier, healthier, stronger and safer. So it's within that context that our projects were brought forward. And just sort of maybe to add to that context, you don't need to read the detail, but really the point of this slide is to say that certainly the Scottish Government sees infrastructure not just about bringing forward new projects, new bits of infrastructure, whether it's hospital, roads, bridges, etc. It's very much how can that be maximised for the sustainable benefit of the country in terms of the economic element of that, the social element of that, and the environmental element of that. So that's the kind of, again, the background against which we were operating. And, you know, I don't need to tell you guys, but, you know, the case for low carbon infrastructure is very sound, and I actually don't like the term low carbon infrastructure. Just infrastructure should be low carbon these days. And I think as soon as you start to call it low carbon infrastructure, some people think it's slightly different. But the reality is, given the challenges we face, the way we're doing things should be all about low carbon infrastructure. There was a report that went before us which looked at where some of the public spending was going in Scotland, and they put it into, you know, low carbon development, so that's renewable energy, energy efficiency, etc., rail programmes, neutral programmes which were around social infrastructure, schools, healthcare, and sort of the digital agenda, and then higher carbon, which were non-renewable energy, roads and airports. And those are the statistics in terms of what we're coming forward. So you can see there is very much a bias towards the low carbon one at the moment, but Lord Stern and his grouping have come up with a target that 72% of investment in low carbon category is needed if we're going to meet these targets. So as you can see, there's an imperative to get more low carbon infrastructure coming forward. And as it says there, it does represent good value for money in terms of the additional benefit it brings. So that was our long list of projects for Scotland. As you can see there's a mixture. The rail network was quite a big focus for us. At the moment there's an imperative in Scotland to dual the roads between all our major cities. So we were saying, well, should that not be dualling the rail track and electrifying it as well? We also talked about a new line from the Central Belt up to Aberdeen to increase the ability to Aberdeen to deal more with the Central Belt, because the reality is you can get to Glasgow and Edinburgh very quick from London, but once you get there you've almost got the same amount of time to get up to Aberdeen. I won't go through them all in detail, but the one sort of takeaway I would ask is please go on to scotlandswayahead.org, because one of the unique things about this project is it's very interactive. And our client, who's essentially WWF, want people to go on and like the projects they think are best. So it's very much about engagement with stakeholders, you know, both across Scotland and the rest of the country. So you'll see the 10 projects there. We talk about in detail about in terms of the cost, the potential carbon savings, the context for them. There's quite a lot of detail. It's not down to the engineering design drawings, but it'll give you a context of what those projects and programmes are about. But it's been interesting. So out of the 10, the one which is way ahead at the moment is re-engineering cities to favour non-motorised transport, which is quite interesting. So very much a kind of something that's about the people and about mobility within city centres. So yeah, just in terms of the key messages and our learning from it, I would say in terms of the Scottish context, then the policy direction is clear. We're not going to see any sort of different. We're moving away from the targets we've set. The ambition on low carbon investment continues. I don't think in Scotland particularly funding is a constraint. There are funding streams available. There's a new £76 million scheme funded through Europe to bring forward low carbon investment. So there's funding there. I would say there's probably a lack of flagship projects on the low carbon side. You know, it'd be great to see a few billions being spent on heat networks, etc., that kind of show people this is very much the change of direction. I think capacity is an issue. We appreciate that public funds are getting less and less, and that's impacting on staff numbers. So the ability of the public sector to actually deliver, to have the technical capability, or even just the bums in the seats, is increasingly a challenge. It's something we need to be aware of. So that capacity is something that we have identified. But I'd say there's really still significant opportunities to create jobs and improve the social, economic and well-being of the country through this type of infrastructure. So as I say, please go on and like a few projects and take some questions later. Thanks.